All right, everyone, welcome back. I am pumped for this deep dive. We are tackling Squid Game today.
Squid Game,
So
yeah.
have you seen Squid Game?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's been kind of hard to avoid, hasn't it?
It's everywhere.
It really has taken the world by storm.
Yeah, you see those tracksuits all over the place.
Hey.
And the masks. Like, it's a whole thing. And I think there are so many layers to unpack.
Definitely.
So we're going to dive deep into it. What did you think when you first saw it? Like, what was your initial, gut reaction?
I think what struck me first was just how visually captivating it is, Like the colors, the set design, the whole aesthetic. It's just so striking. And then you have this really dark, disturbing storyline. And I think that contrast is part of what makes it so compelling.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's like candy-colored horror, almost. Like, you're drawn in by the visuals, but then the story hits you with this, gut punch.
Exactly. And speaking of gut punches, I think we have to talk about the social commentary that's woven throughout the show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, one of the sources we have even calls it a savage indictment of late-stage capitalism. And I think that's a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah, it's definitely not subtle about its critique of, wealth inequality and the systems that, kind of create these desperate situations that we see the players in.
Exactly. And I think the show does a really good job of showing how economic disparity can really push people to their breaking point.
Yeah, remember Sang-woo,
Yeah.
the guy who was, facing jail time for embezzlement?
Yeah.
He felt like he had no other choice but to play. And you see that desperation mirrored in so many of the other players, too.
Right, like Gi-hoon,
Yeah.
who's drowning in gambling debts, and then you have Sae-byeok, who needs money to help her family. Like, the show really forces us to ask ourselves, how far would we go if we were in their shoes?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is, and it's an uncomfortable question.
Right.
But I think it's one that resonates with a lot of people, especially when you think about the state of the economy and, rising living costs, all those sorts of things that are kind of pressing down on people.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like this underlying anxiety that's kind of present in our society.
Absolutely.
And then you had the VIPs, right?
Yeah.
Which is just a whole other level of messed up.
The VIPs, oh my gosh, yes.
Talk about a detached view of suffering.
Yeah.
They're betting on people's lives like it's a horse race.
They're literally just there for their own amusement.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
And it makes you think about, how wealth and power can really distort people's perception of, of humanity.
Yeah, one of the articles I read pointed out that it's not even just about wealth disparity, it's about dehumanization, when you become so detached from the consequences of your actions and you see people as pawns in your game rather than actual human beings.
It makes you think about real world parallels, how people view, those experiencing homelessness or poverty. It's easy to kind of, turn away from those issues and distance yourself.
Absolutely.
But Squid Game kind of throws it in your face.
Mm-hmm. It makes you confront them.
It forces you to look at it and really think about, okay, what's your responsibility here?
Yeah.
And it's not just all doom and gloom. I mean, there are moments of, real beauty and human connection amidst all the darkness.
Oh, for sure. There's still this, glimmer of hope and humanity that shines through in those small acts of kindness.
Yeah, totally. Like when Gi-hoon shares his food with Oil-nam.
Yes.
Even though he barely has enough for himself.
Uh-huh.
Or like Ali, who risks his own life to help another player.
I know. It's just so powerful. And it's in those moments you see the characters choosing compassion over self-preservation, which is huge.
Right. And it makes you think about what choices you would make in that situation. Would you prioritize your own survival or would you risk it all to help someone else?
Right. And the show doesn't offer any easy answers.
It doesn't, but it makes you think.
Yeah.
And another thing that I thought was really interesting was how the show, it avoids painting characters as purely good or evil.
Oh, yeah.
It's everyone is complex,
Absolutely. Take Sang-woo, for example. He makes some, truly awful choices, right?
Yeah.
But you can also kind of understand the desperation that's driving him, and the show doesn't let him off the hook for those choices, but it also makes you consider the gray areas of morality,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nobody is a straight up villain.
Exactly. Everyone is just trying to survive.
And I think that's what makes it so relatable is we see ourselves in these characters, even the ones who make really, really bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why Squid Game became such a global phenomenon.
Totally.
It tapped into these universal themes of survival, morality, and the pressure cooker of, societal expectations. And I think that resonates with people across cultures.
One of the sources I read argued that the show's popularity kind of reflects a global anxiety about the future, you know,
Uh-huh.
about the increasing gap between the haves and the have-nots. And I think it's a story that feels like all too real, even though it's wrapped up in this like really outlandish, fantastical premise.
Exactly. It's entertaining, but it's also like it makes you think. And I think that's what a good deep dive is all about, right?
Absolutely.
Making you question, making you see the world a little bit differently. So, as we wrap up, I'm curious, what resonated most with you?
Yeah. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, and what questions did it raise for you? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Definitely. Let's hear what you think.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks.